Ironman family. We're here at the Ironman Philippines Superstore. We're here to discuss upper arms. Do you need upper control arms or not? For a 2-inch lift, a proper 2-inch lift with a proper sag and a proper setting, you do not need upper arms. I'm sure a lot of people will wonder why everybody sells upper arms with a 2-inch kit. I don't really know, but you don't need upper arms for a proper 2-inch lift kit. How will you know if you need the upper arm? The only indicator that you need the upper arm is if you cannot properly align your 4x4 after your lift. Now, for a proper 2-inch lift, basically that's impossible. Proper 2-inch lifts will align properly without the upper arm. Now, there are certain vehicles that may or may not align properly. Basically, based on my experience, the D-Max and the Chevy Colorado have a tendency to get really hard to align after a 2-inch lift. Maybe on some Navaras. Basically, this is because the original upper arm is stamped steel welded. So there are chances where all arms are not exactly the same. So some arms may align, some arms may not align. So in those cases, you might need an aftermarket upper control arm. So some of you might wonder, if we don't really need an upper arm, how come Ironman 4x4 made an upper arm? Okay. On most cases, clients tend to want to fit the biggest possible tire on their 2-inch lift. This way, you get to abuse the ground clearance since you don't have a drop kit, you don't have anything under your vehicle. Going with a larger tire gives you a lot more ground clearance. Now, usually, if you stay within spec of your suspension, the largest possible tire that's in your mind might not fit. So you might need to go a little over, maybe go 2.5 inches. Then when you go 2.5 inches, you wouldn't be able to align your vehicle properly. That's when you need an aftermarket upper arm like Ironman's Pro Forged upper arm. That is the only time where we can say that you really need an upper arm. But everybody should also understand that, as I said 2.5 inches, maybe a maximum of 3, but 3 is really cutting it close. Why is this so? An upper arm basically solves your geometry problem with regards to caster. So a proper upper arm will have its upper ball joint moved slightly back as compared to original, which I'm sure you will notice. We'll post with more pictures of it also. So an aftermarket upper arm moves the upper ball joint back a little so you get more caster. Also, the aftermarket upper arm will position the ball joint lower and with a little angle, so it will give you more drop or more sag or more droop. This way, you don't stress the upper ball joint too much when the suspension is fully extended. But you must also be aware, with an upper arm, we only fix the upper portion of the whole suspension. If you go too much and force your suspension too high, you will also stress out the lower ball joint, you will stress out your lower shock mounts, you will stress out your rack ends, your tie rods, and if you're a 4x4, your CV joints. All those things, an upper arm will not fix. So basically what we're saying is, this is safe for fixing your alignment problems, maybe up to 2.5 inches, 3 inches the most on some vehicles. We've tried it on the Nissan Navara running 3 inches. It was fine. We don't have a diff drop up to now. Maybe we have 20,000-30,000 kilometers on it and it's still going strong. On the Hilux most people are run 2.5 inches. Seems fine with an aftermarket upper arm. So we go back to the first question. Do I need an upper arm? If you stay within spec of your suspension, no. If you want to venture out to the as tall as I can go and as big a tire as I can go, then you will need an upper arm. Now, a lot of the rigs in the Philippines run upper arms. Why? Basically, they don't have a choice with coil spring rates. So they use a stiff spring in a light vehicle because they don't have a choice. Most brands do not offer soft springs, or most of the brands who have soft springs, they have soft springs but they are not 2-inch lift. Ironman is the only brand carrying soft 2-inch lift springs for 4x2s basically, and light 4x4s, no accessories. So normally if you use other suspension brands, your 2-inch lift actually becomes 2.5, more or less. Then you get out of spec with caster, then you need an upper arm. So guys, you running overlifted trucks, all I can say is check your sag, measure your sag. We have a link on the sag measurement in our YouTube channel. Check your sag. If you do not hit 60 millimeters of sag, your spring is too stiff, you might need an upper arm to get your alignment straight. Vibration and upper arms. Well, that's a bit of a myth for me based on my personal experience. Unless and only unless you have your caster all wrong because you are way overlifted and your stock arms can't get you into the proper caster, then you might have, some people call it vibration, but it might be a little bit of death wobble, which is caused by bump steer. Anytime you have very little caster or no caster at all, you hit anything on the road, it's going to, since your tires are positioned front forward, anything that they hit will make them go wander, and then that's the cause of death wobble. Having the proper caster turns your spindles like that, so it resists shimmy a lot. It makes going straight a lot easier. On our Hilux with 275 tires, we have absolutely no rubbing. We did not do a body mount chop. I trimmed the fenders a little because I installed the Ironman mud guards, so I needed to put them back a little. But other than that, I don't have any rubbing, but I run about 5 degrees of caster on the Hilux. With 5 degrees of caster, it drives super straight. It drives a lot better than it was stock, actually. So I think the caster of the Hilux is at around 2.5 to 4 or 2.5 to 5. But at 5 degrees, you are at the edge of the alignment machine specs, but still in the green. Camber and everything is no problem. So that's our experience with the upper arms. Now, vibration comes from badly balanced wheels, maybe broken bearings, maybe not properly seated tires, but it's upper arms and vibration are a bit way off. But unless you have improper caster, then that might be a factor for you to need the upper arm. For those people who really go out and use their 4x4s, really they go four-wheeling and need the strength, nothing beats the strength of Ironman 4x4's Pro Forged arm. It really is the strongest arm in the market. It's the most accurate arm in the market. So basically, Those guys who really understand and who really need their vehicles and who really use their vehicles, this is one of the best you can buy. What is your advantage when you choose Ironman 4x4's Pro Forged upper arm? First off, the biggest advantage is this is a ground up, full, new Ironman 4x4 original design. This is not a copy of any arm. This is not a rebrand of a famous Australian arm. No, we didn't come up with this by just painting it gray and changing stickers. This is a full ground up design. This arm was designed on the alignment machine. It was 3D designed, and we came up with the molds and then came out with a forged alloy arm. This is the first and only aftermarket forged alloy arm in the 4x4 market. What's the advantage? Okay, if you guys know the basics of welding, if we sell a welded tubular arm, we usually build it on a jig. We spot weld all the components in a jig, we take it out, then we full weld it. When you weld, you heat and cool the metal, which makes the metal flex. So most of the tubular welded arms are not exactly the same. It's not a 0-0 dimension. So some arms might be a little different than others. This is due to the welding process. People who weld will fully understand what I say, because if you go full weld any metal, it's gonna warp. Okay, warp is the proper word. Now with forging, we have a mold. The mold stays exactly the same. We apply a lot of pressure to the alloy to squeeze it into the mold. So it's exactly, all the arms are exactly the same. Your other advantage with forged, as like forged wheels, which is a lot easier to understand and a lot of people are a lot more familiar with. Forged comes from a big metal squeezed into a tiny metal like this, so it comes out to be a lot stronger. Molecules are tighter. Now on the Ironman arm, we have everything molded and machined in place. You have all the holes for the brackets for your ABS, brake hoses, and the biggest advantage of the Ironman arm is we have a stock Toyota arm here. It uses the same Toyota upper ball joint, the same Toyota bushings. Why is this so? Okay. Ironman redesigned the geometry of the whole arm, which allowed you to use an original Toyota ball joint. Advantage is maintenance. The ball joint you can buy from any Toyota dealer. Any store selling Toyota parts will have your ball joint. Same goes with the bushings. Going with a wild, customized upper arm usually gives you a headache when it comes to maintenance, because you don't have a source for the extended ball joint or the uniball or whatever that it uses. Same goes with the bushings. We also went with the OEM rubber bushings because experience told us the OEM Toyota rubber bushings are the strongest in the market. It's a lot stronger than polyurethane. It's a lot quieter. It absorbs a lot more vibration. So basically, you can't go wrong with using Toyota parts. That's your biggest advantage with the Ironman upper control arm. Now, if you look at the stock versus Ironman, I'll try to put them side by side. You will already see the different position of the ball joint. You will also see an enlarged pocket, which gives you clearance. If we put them down, you will see a difference in height. So this clearly shows you that the ball joint is a lot lower than the original. So basically that's your advantage. So if you find a tubular upper arm with an extended ball joint, that means they didn't change the geometry of the upper arm at all. They changed the geometry using an aftermarket ball joint, which you can do with your stock arm anyways. So why spend money on an upper arm which only uses an aftermarket ball joint? Change your stock arm to an aftermarket ball joint, then you don't have a problem. So basically that's your biggest advantage with Ironman 4x4's Pro Forged upper control arm. Another thing, on our personal Hilux Conquest, this is our original arm on the Hilux Conquest. We decided to try and fit 275 7017 BF Goodrich all-terrain tires on offset zero rims and running the standard 2-inch lift with 60 mm of sag on the original arms. We had a bit of rubbing in the back, which we remedied through caster adjustment, but then I was already down to about 50 millimeters of sag. When I installed the Ironman Pro Forged arm, I gained about 10 to 20 millimeters of sag. So now I'm running 65 to 70 millimeters of sag. So that means I can go down, and since the Ironman shocks are height adjustable, whether Nitro, Foam Cell, or Foam Cell Pro, you can add another 10 millimeters of lift, which is one big advantage of the Ironman Pro Forged arm. So basically you'll be running about a total of about 55 millimeters of lift with the upper control arm. So that's one advantage that I noticed in our personal experience. So for the Nissan NP300 guys, a lot of guys ask me, Nissan has a tendency to have the arm sit on the upper shock mount on droop. When this happens to you, that means your shock is too long. Most often than not, when the upper arm hits the upper spring mount, you check your shocks, there's a coil spacer on top. That's way overlifted. However, for people who want to push their Nissan NP300 or D40 to 3 inches, like what we did on our silver NP300, on the silver NP300, I had to custom make the upper arm. We made it in our shop. This was to gain more clearance so that we don't hit on the upper spring mount. And we had to relocate the ball joint to get the proper caster and camber. So for those guys who want to go 3 inches on their NP300, wait for the upper arms from Ironman. We have Pro Forged for NP300 coming really soon. So what's available? We first came out in the market with the Toyota arms. This is a Toyota arm. We have Ford available. We have Nissan coming really soon. It's actually on its way. And hopefully Mitsubishi will be next. For the guys with Toyotas, our Toyota part number fits your Hilux Vigo, Revo, Conquest, FJ Cruiser, Prado 120, Prado 150, Tacoma. So all those vehicles use the same part number for our Pro Forged. Now for the Ford guys, it fits the Ranger and Everest. And for the Nissan guys, I'm sure it will fit the D40, NP300, and Terra. So watch out for more Pro Forged arms from Ironman. If you have any questions regarding the use of the upper control arms, any brand, drop us a comment, send us a message. We'll get back to you soon. Thank you very much.